Hi, my name is Alister Chapman, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the RAW options for the Sony PXW FX9 that will be included in firmware version 2. Now this will be a major upgrade for this camera, and amongst other things it will introduce the ability to output 16-bit RAW via the XDCA FX9 extension unit, the RAW output then being recorded on a suitable external recorder. First though, I want to look at what RAW is and why a 16-bit RAW output at this price point is very exciting. Large sensor cameras such as the FX9 use a single sensor. That sensor is made up of an array of pixels that measure light levels. Above each pixel there is either a red, green or blue color filter. These are typically arranged in a pattern called a Bayer pattern. The pixels themselves though don't know what color the light that falls on them is. They just record an intensity or brightness value. These values are then output from the sensor as a single frame that contains only brightness information, and this is the raw sensor output. For conventional recordings, this raw brightness information is converted to a color image by the camera's internal processor, and as part of that conversion process, things such as white balance, gain, gamma, and many other items that determine the final look of the image are baked into this now color picture before it's recorded. When you shoot RAW, the brightness information of each pixel direct from the sensor is what you record. This then allows you to do all of the image processing required to turn that data into a color image in post-production. And this gives you greater flexibility to adjust things like the colors, contrast and all those other factors that determine the final look of your pictures. This is the main benefit of RAW, greater post-production flexibility. But because you'll be doing a lot of that critical image processing after the image has been recorded, if you want a really good end result, then the quality of that data needs to be as high as possible. And this is why a 16-bit output is so important. For most digital cinema applications, 16-bit linear or 12-bit log are the preferred RAW formats. 16-bit data can have up to 64,000 shades per channel compared to a maximum of around 1,000 shades per channel for a 10-bit RAW or log recording. The FX9's 16-bit RAW offers the ability to output incredibly nuanced full-fat images, simply not possible with many light RAW formats. Another RAW benefit is that because the output from the camera is just a single set of brightness values, rather than the 3 sets of values needed for a component YCB, CR image, the amount of data that needs to be recorded is reduced. This allows you to use either less compression for higher quality or output at higher frame rates while still maintaining manageable file sizes. In version 2, the FX9 will output a downsampled 4K DCI RAW stream at up to 30 frames per second from the camera's full-frame 6K scan mode. 4K DCI RAW can also be output at 50 and 60 frames per second using either the new full-frame crop 5K scan mode or the Super 35mm scan mode. The full-frame crop 5K scan mode has a scan area that's around 83% of full frame. As well as 4K DCI, you'll also be able to record 2K DCI at up to 180 frames per second by using the camera's full-frame 2K scan or Super 35 2K scan. It should be noted, however, that the reduced resolution of the 2K scan modes does mean that the image quality will not be as high as is possible with the other scan modes. And it's recommended that you expose around a stop brighter than normal when using the 2K scan modes for the best results. In addition, there will be a later firmware release after version 2 that will allow you to output 10-bit 4K RAW at 120 frames per second. To record the RAW output, you will need the Sony XDCA FX9 extension unit and a suitable external RAW recorder. Atomos will be introducing a firmware update for their Shogun 7 recorder that will allow it to record the RAW output from the FX9 to conventional low-cost SSDs. In order to use this existing recorder and off-the-shelf SSDs, the Shogun 7 will take the 16-bit linear RAW output from the FX9 and convert it to 12-bit log RAW. According to Atomos, their 12-bit encoding algorithm fully utilises all of the camera's original 16-bit raw data, preserving the full image quality while reducing the amount of data that needs to be recorded for maximum efficiency. Atomos claim that the use of log maintains the quality of the recordings, with the whole process being visually lossless. To connect the recorder to the camera, you should use a high-quality SDI cable. The camera must be set to the Cine EI mode, and you can use either the 800 or 4000 base ISO, depending on the lighting conditions. When outputting RAW, you can also record an HD recording in the camera. This can be used as a proxy recording for post-production, or as a broadcast-ready HD file with a look baked in via a LUT for fast turnaround applications. In order to enable the RAW output, you should choose one of the RAW recording codec options. The quickest way to do this in version 2 firmware is via the status pages. Simply press the status button on the side of the camera to bring up the status pages, and then use either the touchscreen or multifunction dial to select either just a RAW output or a RAW plus codec option that best fits your needs from the codec menu. A good starting point would be to choose RAW plus XAVCI. From the same status page, you can also quickly choose the scan mode that you wish to use. If you don't want to use the status pages to change the settings, they can all be found in the camera's menus under Project and Record Format. As the camera will be in the Cine EI mode, you can apply an MLUT to the internal recordings and monitoring outputs if you wish. In version 2, you can load your own user monitor LUTs from an SD card or use one of the built-in LUTs. But do note that when shooting RAW and recording internally, the MLUT will be applied to the internal recording, but the use of an MLUT doesn't affect the RAW output in any way. If you don't wish to apply an MLUT to the internal recordings, you can use the Viewfinder Gamma Display Assist function to apply a conventional Rec. 709 look to the viewfinder. Once the RAW output has been enabled from the camera, you need to ensure that the Atomos Shogun 7 is set up correctly. Make sure the SDI cable is connected between the RAW output on the XDCA FX9 and the In1 SDI on the Shogun. Then set the input source to SDI and the record trigger to Sony on the Shogun 7. You're now ready to shoot extremely high quality RAW. White balance should be set as you would do normally, and you should expose exactly as you would when shooting S-Log3. As with any other camera, you should avoid underexposure, and a brighter exposure is preferable to a dark exposure, as this will ensure you have a low noise image for the greatest post-production flexibility.